This is the Patriots Catch-22 podcast with Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I'm Evan Lazar. Evan Lazar. Hello, everybody. Nailed it. Joined as always by our Barth. That's a fit. That's a match. No risk it, no biscuit.
22.
Here is Evan Lazar and Alex Barth.
I think it's all about depth, which...
22.
Oh, the Celtics don't have enough depth. That's your concern. You're being ridiculous. It's the NBA. I wonder who was giving me that take for months. Depth is going to win the Celtics in the NBA Finals.
Depth is going to win. You were the one that was concerned that they didn't have depth.
Right.
Now you're saying they're going to win the finals because they do have depth, and you're giving me a hard time about that? I told you for...
You told me depth doesn't matter in the NBA.
No, I did not tell you that.
You did.
I told you that their third center was not going to matter.
I also thought they were going to play...
didn't.
I thought they were going to play the Nuggets. So it's a completely different conversation if they ended up playing the Nuggets.
See, now we're moving the goalposts. We're changing the argument now. That's pretty typical of you to just move the goalposts. You know, I thought they were going to play Denver. I've been telling you that they weren't going to play Denver.
You texted me the other day about the third center. You're like, man, I really wish they had a better third center.
I did not say that.
You did. You did.
I did not say
You
that.
did. In so many words,
No.
you did. You did. You know what you texted me. I'm not going to put anybody on blast, but you did.
We'll get to... We'll get to a Celtics minute at the end of the show, but there's too much Patriots stuff to talk about. And hey, Patriots fans, if you want to see Toyota's best offers, including those not seen on TV, go to buytoyota.com. It's Toyota's official website for deals from the official vehicle of the New England Patriots. Toyota, let's go places. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. Evan Lazar, Alex Barth with you here for the next couple hours. Patriots Catch-22. We are going to be more MiniCamp heavy than Unfiltered was. We just spent 2 hours reminiscing or whatever. Can you say reminiscing when it just happened last night? I don't know.
Reliving.
Reliving. Yeah, that's a better word for it. Reliving Brady night. We are going to talk about Brady night here off the top and each give our take, but we will then get back into the current team a little bit more than PU did and talk a little bit more about minicamp. Since it's our only show this week with the 2 days of minicamp practices. But first and foremost, Alex, I did want to get your thoughts and feelings on Brady night. And I think the last point I'll make, because I just made 2 hours of points, so I don't need to make any more. The last point that I would make about Brady night is sometimes I will fully admit, full disclosure, I come on here and I act a little bit more excited about things because of who signs my paycheck, right? Like you just have to kind of do that sort of thing sometimes. And this event, I was a little bit worried about going in, as you know, that it was going to get bogged down and boring by all the speeches and all that kind of stuff. And I know there's some criticism of that today. That was a little long. But in general, there was not a moment last night where I didn't want to be there, or I felt like it was going on for too long,
right,
or dragging, or whatever the case may be. And I genuinely felt that it was an outstanding night to be a Patriots fan, and it was one that I will never forget. And the last thing I'll say, the fact that this place showed up for Tom Brady like that last night, not for a game, not for an AFC championship game, not for week one, not for any other reason, but just pack the house to honor the greatest quarterback of all time, really goes to show not just what he meant to all of us, but also what kind of town this is. And I really think it was just an awesome, awesome night. And I'm not just saying that because of who signs my paycheck.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Tom Brady said last night, and his speech was like the mini highlights of the night. Jay-Z, that was so cool. That was so cool. Randy Moss getting a standing ovation and tearing up was awesome. I know he kind of left here in a weird way, and for him to get, I don't know that he'd ever gotten a proper salute from the crowd like that, but he absolutely deserved that. I'm happy for him that he got that moment. No, before we get to Bill, Deion Branch's introduction of Bill was so good, where he taught, if people didn't see it, Troy Brown and him are up on stage, and Troy Brown tells a story like, I knew Tom Brady, I knew I was in the presence of greatness when, and he talks about him and Brady bumped into Jay-Z in New York City. And then Deion Branch goes, well, I'm going to tell you why we're in the presence of greatness right now. I have 4 reasons. Greatest fans, greatest owner, greatest player of all time, and the greatest coach of all time, Bill Belichick. And the place just went nuts. And then I think it was 5 minutes before Bill could say something. So that was obviously fantastic and much well-deserved. And I'm glad Bill got that moment. I'm glad the fans got that moment. But then Brady's speech, for a number of reasons, really I just thought hit every single note and was powerful. But at one point during that speech, he said this was a night for anybody who's ever cared about this organization.
Yeah.
And I think that was the perfect summation because, like, I've told this story before, but, like, when I was in college and I majored in sports media in college, like, this is what I wanted to do. The night of Super Bowl 49, my dad texts me a picture of me and my brother watching Super Bowl 36, and he's like, if not for Tom Brady, you know, what would you be doing, right? Because I fell in love with football through those teams, and then through football I got into, like, doing media and stuff. And so Tom Brady has had a very, very significant impact on my life, and I'm far from alone in that.
Yeah.
And I remember when he left, like, that was my big takeaway, was there's so many people whose lives he had a legitimate, significant impact on that he'll never know. And it's not that he doesn't want to, it's not that he doesn't even necessarily care, but, like, it's just so many people. And how could he possibly know the individual impacts he had on all those people? And I think last night was a really good way, in a way, for people to kind of show that, for people to be here. And then at the same time, I mean, he talked a lot about the fans. He got a lot more in the weeds about his relationship with the fans and his family's relationship with the region than I thought he would. And, you know, maybe the impact we had on him is a little bigger than some of us thought. So I like that's, and the same with Bill. Bill talked about the fans, and he obviously got that ovation of people like Randy Moss. To me, last night, it was a dialogue. It was a dialogue between the greats of this organization and the fan base. And I just think that's what an event like that should be.
Yeah.
And I just think on that level, it was a really, really special event. And that was the feeling I had last night when I walked out of there. That was the feeling I had when I woke up with this morning. And then the one other thing from Brady's speech that has resonated with me was I just thought it was towards the end, and he starts talking about the game of football. And you know me, like, how can you not get romantic about football, right?
I can tell you a million ways, but yeah, keep going.
No, but you're miserable. And he's like, you know, everybody should play football because football's hard, life's hard. And he says to be successful at something, you don't need to be special. You just need to be what other people aren't, or what most people aren't. Consistent, determined, willing to work, no shortcuts. I mean, what a great summation of what everything was about here for 20 years.
Yeah.
And that I would, like, when he said that, I shot up. I was like, wow. And then, like, right after that, you know, I'm Tom Brady. I'm a Patriot. Boom. Beautiful day. Shut it down. Yeah, no notes. No notes.
I love it. Yeah, no notes is the right way to put it. And this isn't a shot at people that couldn't be here last night or that are watching from other states or other countries or anything like that. But as much as important to the organization as it was to get the stream up and get that all functioning and make sure that all hit, I think the biggest thing that I took away is that there are certain things that you just kind of have to be there in person to really understand and fully embrace. And I don't know, and maybe some people can email in webradio@patriots.com, or you can call in at 855-PATS-500, because I'm curious a little bit if did it play as well on the stream and watching it at home as it did in the stadium? Because in the stadium, the emotion of the entire thing from start to finish was cathartic. It was like nothing I have ever been a part of, and I've been lucky, super, super, super lucky to be at playoff games, be at Super Bowls, be at big time moments in the dynasty. And that's the lasting impression too of this that I'll take away is the dynasty. This felt like through Brady as the figurehead as he is, this was almost a celebration of the entire dynasty. You had
as it should have been,
a bunch of people back here, a bunch of the big names back in town for this, from the player side, the coaches side, and it felt like Brady was the guy that was leading it. His name was the one that was at the top of the bill. But at the same time, the whole thing felt like we needed a way to close the book on the Patriots dynasty, and we got that last night. And that you cannot replace that.
Well, so let me say this though. Bill's got to get something similar, right? When the time comes.
So we talked about that a little bit on PU. I do. Bill deserves everything. that he's going to get. There's no doubt about that. But it's going to have to be different because you don't want it to be exactly the same as Tom's.
I would be very okay if it was exactly the same, honestly.
I don't know if Bill, and this is no slight on Bill, so I hope people don't take it that way. It's a little different when it's a player versus a coach. I don't know if it lands the same if it's for Bill. I don't know if there's 65,000 people there, frankly.
Oh, I think there would be. The way that stadium reacted last night.
Maybe all 65,000 of those people would come back because of the setup, I suppose.
Well, there you go.
I don't know. I just, it's going to be something big. It's not going to be out in the plaza like the usual Hall of Fame ceremony is. It will be its own thing as it should be. It should be differentiated between, no offense, but the Mike Vrabels of the world and those types of guys and Brady and Belichick. But I think it should be a little bit different. It should just be presented a tad differently. Should also mention that the number 12 is now officially retired for this organization. No one will ever wear it again. Not that we thought that they would, but it's now going to be officially retired. There will be a statue out in the plaza going up in 2024 during the season for Brady as well, which I'm looking forward to. I'm a sucker for those types of things. I don't know why, but I love statues of like iconic.
That's what you're
figures.
excited for?
Yeah, I am. I can't wait to take a picture with that thing.
Your statue guy? Is that what it is?
I'm a statue guy because that is there permanently forever. Like that is not moving. And, it's just a permanent thing. I love the Bobby Orr statue outside the Garden. I love the Red Auerbach statue in Faneuil Hall. I like it. I think it's cool. That's going to be a cool thing for people to come and see and take pictures with and all that kind of stuff. So just a great night. You can call in about that or email in about that if you want. But like I said, we're going to try to pivot here a little bit more towards the current team in minicamp. But I'll ask you this, and just to put a bow on it, what was your favorite moment of the night? And to me, this night, it exceeded all expectations I had because I set a pretty low bar because I didn't want to be disappointed, frankly, and it really exceeded all expectations. So I would just say again that it was just great all around. But what was your favorite moment?
I would say it was either like Brady's entire speech, or the pop Bill got when he got introduced. Yeah, I mean those are the two most those are two pretty big moments.
Yeah, see, speeches don't do it for me.
I love a good speech.
You're like, oh, statues do. Yeah, you know me. I'm weird. I have my own quirks when it comes to these types of things. To me, it was Randy Moss because I just feel like for so many of us, and we're right in this generation, Randy Moss was larger than life. He was an absolute superstar. And I mentioned this earlier, but the Dynasty 1.0 was very defense driven.
Yeah.
It was very team driven, and some people, the detractors for Randy Moss would probably say that's why they didn't win in 2007 is because it was a little bit more about the individual. But for me, Randy Moss, other than Brady, obviously himself, Randy Moss was the biggest superstar the Patriots had in my lifetime until that point. And that season was the biggest superstar season I had ever seen any Boston athlete have. I can't even begin to tell you how much I love that guy. Like that, he is one of my favorite all-time athletes, and I never held anything against him for not winning a Super Bowl. I never looked at that season of his any differently because they didn't win the Super Bowl, and it was great to see that because I think a little bit of Randy Moss feels like he was a part of this, but he wasn't really a part of it because he wasn't here for that long, and then obviously they didn't finish the job. So I'm glad that he got recognized because now, as much as 18-1 kills me to this day, as much as the losses still sting a little bit, it really doesn't matter. Like they won 6 times. It was dominant. Nobody else in the history of the league is going to sell out a stadium like that for a retirement or a Hall of Fame induction. So it really doesn't. 20 years later, it really doesn't matter all that much, right? So now we can just go out there and honor these people. So it was very cool. Alex said it played through the stream. He heard it. This is Alex on the emails from Raleigh, and he said that it was amazing through the stream as well. So that's good to hear, because I hope that it definitely hit here for sure with everybody I talked to, and I hope it did for everybody at home as well. All right, so we'll get into the current team now, and I should mention that the Patriots rookie class was at the event last night, and
they're all wearing their jerseys too.
Yeah, that was a little bizarre.
Is that so the other, like the veterans, the former players, will know who they are?
Fans, veterans, yeah. I mean,
I hope they had Drake May eyes held open, making him watch that whole thing.
So. Yeah, I mean, maybe.
Especially with some of the stuff Brady had to say.
I feel like that's a little overrated. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it was a speech.
I know if I'm him and I am digesting every single word of that. If I'm him,
okay.
or if I'm his coach, I'm playing that back for him.
I don't think that's gonna be the difference between why he's great and not. That's all I'm saying. But
I can't want him to have some of that mindset.
I can't tell you that he was there the entire time. Yeah. Some of the other guys started to trickle out towards the end, but he stayed through the entire thing. It was fantastic, and it was great to see him there. But I just coming to the current team, coming to MiniCamp now, I think that's where we need to start, is obviously with the quarterbacks and with Drake May. And the one thing I've heard or seen a lot of is this notion that Drake May is, and I've probably written this too, so I'm probably guilty as well, that he's ahead of schedule. And I don't know if we can even answer that just yet. But I said most importantly, a lot of what he's done in these spring practices, and it hasn't all been perfect. There's been moments where it hasn't all been perfect, but a lot of what he has done in these spring practices is what I expected him to do. I never thought, and you know that I was a pretty big Drake May guy before they drafted him. I never thought he was quite as far away from starting in the league as everybody else did. And I'm not doing victory laps yet, but I think the main thing is that we're 75% of the way there, I would say, is that if put a number on it, to Drake May being able to start week 1. And he looked throughout the spring and throughout minicamp like he belonged on an NFL field, and like he belonged, he's an NFL starting caliber quarterback, I think, already. And that is, A, it's promising, but B, I would just say I don't think he was that far away to begin with at North Carolina. And some of the pre-draft analysis of, he's going to have to sit for 2 years, or his footwork is such a mess that he's going to have to do the Jordan Love thing, or do at the very least the Patrick Mahomes, redshirt season. My biggest takeaway coming away from minicamp is that he does not look anywhere close to so broken that he's going to have to be on the Jordan Love track, or even an entire year off. When he starts his rookie season, we can debate. It's not really that important right now. I think the most important thing is that he looks like he's on the right path to being someone that can contribute almost right out of the gate.
And I think even to compound that, I know some people said, well, they, because there was that narrative before the draft that Drake May wouldn't be ready his rookie year and he's going to have to sit the whole year. And I think some people grabbed onto that and said, well, no, they drafted him, so they planned to sit him his entire rookie year, so you can't deviate from the plan. The way they've upped his workload throughout the spring they are not treating him like a guy they plan to sit for the entire year. Yeah. So if you want to argue that should have been the plan, I mean, I guess you can, all the power to you, but I don't think they're deviating from any plan. I don't think in their mind he doesn't play this year. They are preparing him to play at some point this year. Like you said, when that is, it's too soon to say. But they're preparing him to play this year at some point.
I just don't think
sorry, I mean start, not,
right.
Well, if he has to play, if Jacoby gets hurt. No, they are preparing him to start games this year.
Right. Calling it rapid development or that he's ahead of schedule, I used that phrase already, that's just not how I would categorize it. I just don't think he was ever as bad as people thought he was.
I think he's on schedule.
Yeah.
I think he's on schedule. I don't think they're behind. I don't think they're ahead. I don't think they're rushing. I think he's more or less where he should be at this point.
Right. There are still moments, certainly, where he had to throw. I can't remember if the two practices have definitely form
Was
together.
it the interception?
No. He had to throw to Mitchell Wilcox that he sailed. It was a tight end flag route, high red zone area, and he had a ball that Wilcox had a step on his guy. It should have been a touchdown, and he threw it over his head, sailed it. One of those sprays that we saw from him at North Carolina. And ideally, yes, you would like to see, instead of that happening one every, let's call it 7-8 throws, you'd like to see that happen one every 15 throws, and you'd like to see that eventually never happen, certainly. But it still doesn't. Those are the plays that are really the ones that you can nitpick with him in these practices, and it still doesn't necessarily cancel out all the other things that he does. And I thought what we saw at the end of practice, and this can kind of segue into a conversation about Jalen Polk, who I thought is starting to come on here later on in the spring. The throws that you see in the red zone that he is making are definitely, in my mind, happening more consistently than the errant throws, the sails or the negative plays, if you want to call it that. So mainly what I'm getting at is that a lot of what he's being asked to do right now is in structure. Of course, they're trying to get him to play in rhythm and on time, and it's 1, 2, 3 and out, through his reads and things like that. We haven't even gotten to the seeing, because it's practice and you're not going to see this in practice. We haven't even gotten to the off-script stuff. We haven't even got to the improvisational things. And if you watch him at North Carolina, his improv skills is a huge part of his skill set. I would say that it's almost 60-40. The plays that he made at North Carolina, the plus plays, when it comes to in the pocket, in structure, would probably be about 60% of them. And then the other 40% of them are on the move or outside the pocket or extending plays with his legs and then making throws on the run. The throw against, I can't remember if it was Clemson or NC State, where he's backpedaling towards the sideline, into the sideline, because the blitz is coming from the field, and he just throws it off his back foot 40 yards on a rope to the receiver down the field for a touchdown. We don't see those types of plays in minicamp or even training camp, because that's not how they want him to play in practice.
Right.
But when you get into games, and we might be able to see this a little bit more in the preseason games, when you get into games, those elements are going to add in. And what I'm getting at, when I watch Jacoby Brissett in practice, I see that everything is going to have to look like it did in the meeting room for it all to come together, for him to be consistently moving the football. It's going to have to be on time, in rhythm, from the pocket. The receiver is going to have to win on the route. The scheme is going to have to work. The offensive line is going to have to hold up. And it's going to have to be, we talk about early on in the spring program, they do perfect plays just against air, right?
Yeah.
Where they're just running plays against air. For Jacoby Brissett to consistently move the football, they're going to have to make perfect plays where all 11 guys are doing what they need to be doing 7, 8, 9 times to get down the field. With Drake May, what you see is that ability to potentially elevate some of the things that are going on around him. And for a team that's going to have a deficient offensive line at times and isn't going to have that star-studded wide receiver class either, or core, I should say, he's going to have that ability to then go make something happen. And that, I think, is something this offense is going to need if they're going to be a good offense this year. What I worry about when I watch Jacoby Brissett is sort of what we watched the last couple of years with Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, where when it all works perfectly, they can make a play happen. But if there's any sort of wobbliness from the Jenga tower, it's all going to come crumbling down. Whether that's a block missed or a receiver is not getting open or whatever the case may be. And Drake May is the guy that I feel like can make something out of nothing. And that's going to be a huge element of their offense. So I don't think that Jacoby Brissett's been bad, just looking at him specifically. I don't think it's that he's been terrible, but he's somebody that you can clearly tell is a system oriented guy, where it's going to have to be the rest of it that's doing the heavy lifting, and he's just going to kind of be able to distribute the football. What have your impressions been of Jacoby Brissett in camp?
I mean, kind of what you said. Like, I think he's been solid. I think he's definitely grown a lot since the first time he was here, and I feel like he's a guy that it's not going to be a mess. It's not going to be a disaster with him out there. He's not going to be a mess. He's not going to be a disaster. He'll be able to, if you give him opportunities, take the plays that are there. I don't know how much more than that he's doing, but he's a bridge quarterback. That's what he's here for. So, I think he's throwing the ball well in the spring, but let's see what happens when there's pressure. Let's see what's happened when there's contact. But, I have no doubt that, if they need him to start 4 games, you're going to be able to evaluate and develop the other offensive players on the field with him at quarterback. It's not going to be an issue where the quarterback plays so sloppy. You don't get a real look at guys like Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. You don't get a real look at a guy like Caden Wallace because the quarterback's just not able to drive the car. I think Brissett will be able to do that, and from a bridge quarterback, that's really all you need.
Yeah, that's a fair point, and I think that's the perfect way to put it, because I'm not trying to sit here and say that Jacoby Brissett's been awful or anything like that.
No, he's been fine. He's been fine, and the first couple weeks, it's really going to be about, can you get some, because you want both Polk and Baker and even Pop Douglas, a second-year guy, right? You want these guys to be able to get their opportunities.
Yeah.
And you just want to make sure you have a quarterback that can give them that. And I think Jacoby Brissett, at the least, can do that.
I have concerns about him being able to do it, honestly, because of the offensive line play.
Well, no, okay, so I mean, in a bubble, he can do it.
Yeah, but that's sort of my point, is that the line's going to have to hold up, and the receivers are going to have to do their thing, and then it's really going to just be Jacoby Brissett is, not to simplify it too much, but it's really going to be like Jacoby Brissett's pressing the button on the controller, right? It's not going to be that Jacoby Brissett is the controller, right?
That's what I'm saying, but for a bridge quarterback, that's all you need.
Sure, but that's where I really feel like if we're going to have any sort of semblance of a football season come the fall, and they're going to be any sort of competitive, to be honest, that's not going to be competitive.
But you can't, like you just said, the offensive line could be a complete mess. And I will give up them being a little less competitive in September 2024 if it means they're a better team for it down the road in 25, 26, 27, 28, and hopefully beyond that.
I just wonder if we're at the point where, I guess I don't know if we're at the point now, is probably the wrong way to put it, but I wonder if we get to the point where it's not, this is going to be expedited. You know what I'm saying? Like, Drake May is going to come in here, and I'm not saying it's going to be full-on Houston Texans mode or something like that, but maybe it's going to be a B-plus version of that.
I don't think it will be, because I don't think the offensive line will give May a chance to show truly what he can do, what the offensive line is going to look like right away. Maybe you get to that point. We spent a while on this last week, Evan. I'm sticking to this. You need to know who your best 5 are before Drake May starts. You cannot have Drake May starting.
We can talk about that, because I believe they know who their best 5 is, and they're just begrudgingly accepting it.
Okay. Well, look, if they have it figured out for week 1, great. That's really hard to do. Just because of the way these practices work and the lack of contact and all that, maybe they drill them a ton in the preseason, which would make some sense. But the one I keep going back to is it's week 5, and we're all sitting there tweeting out this will be the 5th different offensive line Drake May's played behind in 5 starts.
I'm not. So many people, I feel like, think I'm rushing him on the field. I'm not.
You are a little bit.
I'm not, though.
Yeah, you are.
I just think he's that good. I really do. I've thought he's that good since January. So this is not a rose-colored glasses Patriots view type of comment. I just look at it and say, all of these things that we're concerned about, the offensive line, the lack of receiver talent, all this kind of stuff, you could make these arguments for a lot of teams over the years that had better. The quarterback comes in, and it all looks a little bit better.
How many of those teams were, not just last in the league, but among the worst the last decade in terms of pass blocking?
Houston's offensive line is not as good as everybody thought it was.
I agree with you, but it's better than what the Patriots had last year.
Because of Laramie Tunsil?
Yeah.
Okay, well, the Patriots have Mike Onwenu, who's a pretty damn good player.
At right tackle. Their left tackle is a converted right tackle.
Okay, but I just, at some point, it's not all going to be perfect.
It's not all going to be perfect, but it can't be literally
wasting time.
It can't be literally the worst.
Okay, I just don't think it's going to be that bad. I especially don't think it's.
I don't think it's going to be that bad all year.
Who's a playmaker back there that's actually making things happen.
I don't think it's going to be that bad all year. I think it could be that bad to start.
We argue about this all the time. I personally feel like you're wasting time. You're wasting time out of fear. Literally out of fear.
No, out of discipline.
I think it's fear.
No, it's discipline. It's discipline. Don't subject the guy to
but
something that has been proven
good enough to fix it, Alex. Like, did you think that Tank Dell and Nico Collins were anything before last year? Like, Tank Dell's a rookie.
I liked Tank Dell.
We all liked him, but did you think that he was going to be what he was? Nico Collins was an afterthought. Nico Collins was a nobody until C.J. Stroud showed up in Houston. Now he's like a $20 million receiver. I just, at some point in time, it's out of fear and it's dragging your feet on a decision that's obvious to everybody that's watching it.
By the way, Houston last year, you're going to make me use analytics. I can't believe you're doing this. PFF pass block efficiency, Houston was 12th.
Okay, but the quarterback controls that. That's what
to an extent, not entirely.
Every single analytical stat that you can look up will tell you this. The quarterback sacks are a quarterback-driven stat. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. A quarterback-driven stat. Sacks are directly controlled on how much the quarterback holds the ball, his pocket maneuvering, his ability to get the football out, and his ability to keep himself protected.
Okay, pass block win rate. How much is that about the quarterback?
Again,
30-second.
All of this is controlled. First of all, I think it's hilarious that you're trying to throw numbers at me, of all people. Like, this is very much a role reversal here. But all of this kind of stuff, I'm telling you, you look at the quarterback play of the teams that are at the bottom of pass block win rate and pass blocking efficiency and all that kind of stuff. It's deterrent of the quarterback. What is it? Like, probably the Patriots, the Bears, right? Like, the teams that had quarterbacks that were not helping out the situation, or that were mobile quarterbacks like Justin Fields, who held the ball forever.
All right, you know who was second to last pass block win rate?
Who?
Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, see, now I worry about that stat.
Oh, because now it doesn't fit your agenda, so you don't want to use it.
No, it just doesn't fit the eye test.
29th. Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, a quarterback that's had some issues with that, for sure.
I mean, obviously, I'm skipping here some of the play into it.
Well, we can get bogged down by this forever.
I'm not saying Drake May's not talented.
I know you're not saying that. You're just wasting time.
No,
like, we're all wasting time with this.
I've seen very talented quarterbacks get drafted and put behind sieve offensive lines.
Okay, we keep saying this. We keep saying this.
They never recover.
This. Everybody keeps telling me this, that so many great talented quarterbacks were behind bad offensive lines and their careers were ruined or they sucked. Or name them. Name me the talented quarterbacks. You're going to go David Carr? Do you think David Carr was going to be special?
Well, I mean, he's not. We did this 2 weeks ago. We don't know what his career is going to be, but Anthony Richardson was this big mobile guy who can take a hit and get away, and he got hurt.
Let's give him
I go back to your. See, this is where, but it's hard to explain this take because I'm naming bad quarterbacks.
Yes,
and the people
maybe
who
the quarterbacks
don't really
were
look
just
at it.
Bad. Maybe they were just bad.
No, but
Why
you
is that
watch
not
them
allowed?
because you watch them in college, and you see they have ability.
Every quarterback that gets drafted into the league has ability. Mac Jones had ability.
No, there are legitimate busts.
Name them.
There are legitimate.
Name the guys that were in the league and Andrew Luck doesn't count because Andrew Luck was a Hall of Famer for 6 years in the league, right? I'm talking about guys that stunk up the joint.
You're going to make me say it. Yeah. Josh Rosen.
Oh, come
Josh
on.
Rosen was incredibly talented in college.
Be good.
Josh Rosen was incredibly talented in college.
The Josh Rosen that had a hot tub in his dorm room and was like, come on. Josh Rosen was never going to be good in the league.
We will never know because the Cardinals put him behind what was, I think at the time, like the worst offensive line in like 25 years.
So 1 year being behind that offensive line just derails his entire career.
There's videos you can watch where you watch him at the beginning of that season, you watch him at the end, and the footwork, the release,
we can do
the
the same
eyes
thing with
is
Mac
a completely
Jones.
different
We
quarterback.
can do the same thing with Mac Jones.
And what had happened? They put
everybody keeps on yelling at me that Mac Jones just stinks. So I just
but again, because you say that
name
name and you set people off, but Mac Jones, you look at what happened when they put him behind again, the 32nd rank. And I know you're going to say, well, Drake May's better equipped for it. He's more mobile, but to an extent. That's to an extent. I'm not sitting here saying the offensive line has to be perfect. I'm sitting here saying,
if you can give me a list of quarterbacks, because and it's not just you.
You're just going to tell me they're all bad quarterbacks.
But it's not just you. Because I just hear this all the time. Oh, it breaks so many quarterbacks. That would have been great. That would have been Hall of Famers. Give me the list.
This is what the bad teams do. This is what the Jets do. This is what the Bears did for years.
Or maybe they just missed. Maybe they just missed on the evaluation.
Maybe that was part of it. But they would put those quarterbacks back there
Yes.
where they couldn't be protected and let defenses tee off on them, and then they'd wonder why they were sped up and panicky.
Okay.
Again, it's not going to be perfect.
So Justin Fields was going to be this all-time great if he had a better situation around him.
I don't know about all-time great, but it might have worked out better. Look at what happened last year. He actually put together a decent season when they actually
and nobody wanted
built
him.
a semblance of an offensive line.
Literally nobody wanted
because
him.
he's 3 years in at this point. But like Drake May, part of the value in Drake May is yes, he has an ability to mitigate some pass protection issues. And that is part of the value. What he can't mitigate is, what was it last year, like 2.2 to throw or something? There are certain things, he needs enough time to literally throw the ball. It's one thing if
I don't think it's going to be that bad. I don't think it's going to be that bad. And the main reason
they were last.
That was last year.
And who did they add?
They have different people here in the
So
year
we
now.
go back to, again, we've done this we're going to do this all summer. And
have
you
a
trust
different
Scott
system.
Peters is going to turn
It's
it around
different
because the system
coaches.
makes the offensive line irrelevant. All right. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I'm just saying I think it's a little short-sighted because the other thing is, if it is really bad, let's say it is really bad, but you've put him out there and you realize, we're not ready, you can't bench him. Once he's your starter, he's your starter.
Okay,
that's
but I'm
it.
not sitting
I'd
here
rather
arguing
find
that they
out.
need to play him week 1 against the Bengals. That's not what I'm doing.
But it is.
No, what I'm doing is I'm telling you that these notions, these arguments about the supporting cast and the line and all this kind of stuff, when the quarterback has it,
Yeah.
and he's good, these things start to look better than they actually are because he's that dude. He's the one that's elevating all of it.
But some guys need to. You're not always that on day one.
I
guess
felt
is
that
my point.
That way that with Mac Jones, that he was going to have good protection.
Sure.
And he was going to have guys around him. I just don't feel
Well, that was
way
a
with
completely
Drake.
different roster building philosophy. But you're not always confidence is fragile. That's why I'm saying if you just get it to Drake May where it's manageable.
I'm going to give you some homework. I want you to go look back, and I want you to tell me who were the guys that you truly believed in, because it's not just I'm not just coming
You're
at
just
you
going to
about
tell
this.
me they're bad quarterbacks.
I'm not just coming at you about this. I hear this so much that all these the history tells us, and all these out of the top 10 passers that in QBR last year, how many of them started as rookies?
I'm not saying he can't start as a rookie.
I'm just asking you a question. How many do you think of them started as rookies?
Top 10 in QBR?
Yes.
I mean, does Mahomes starting week 17 count?
No.
Probably 6 or 7.
7 of them started as rookies.
How many of the top 3 did?
One of them, all of them. One of them is
not top 3?
No, not in regular season. Remember, their team wasn't that good. Mahomes, Jordan Love, and Kirk Cousins are the other 3 guys.
Okay.
Which all have extenuating circumstances to talk about in context. Lamar, MVP of the league.
Well,
rookie starter.
But
Josh Allen.
hang on.
Rookie
No.
starter.
No. Hang on.
What?
When did Lamar Jackson start?
He started the last 7 games in the playoff game.
Right.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
It's literally all I'm saying.
All right, so we're doing this thing again. Yeah, I'm with you. He should start as a rookie. I think he can start as a rookie. Josh Allen, the same thing, by the way.
Josh Allen started 11 games.
Yeah, but he didn't start the first month. That's what I'm saying. First month, just figure out, like you said, you think your theory
Yes.
is, that sounds disparaging. It's not, but your take is that the offensive line, even though they didn't really add any major pieces, the coaching, the system, the offensive line will look better. All I'm saying is, let's just test that theory on Jacoby Brissett.
But my point
before we
is
put
that
Drake May
Jacoby
in there.
Brissett's a statue back there, so it's not going to look significantly better. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
Shouldn't you be able to get an idea watching the film of how these guys are holding up and how they're working together?
Yes.
I also don't think Jacoby Brissett's a pure stat. He's not Drake May, but he's not Mac Jones either.
He's more of one of those guys, almost like middle to end of career Big Ben, where he's absorbing contact, he's a big dude and he can stand in there and take hits, but he's not overly.
I'm just saying, I think
mobile.
you should be able to get.
You'll get an idea.
They did it with Flacco last year.
You'll get an
in
idea.
Cleveland. That's what I'm saying. Just put Jacoby Brissett out there for a couple weeks. So let's just see. Let's just see what Caden Wallace looks like as a rookie. If he's in there, Let's see what Michael
Okay.
Onwenu looks at it.
And
right
what
tackle.
happens? And what happens if it doesn't look any better? So then we have to sit here and wait a year.
No, then you keep going until you figure out what your best 5 is, whatever that is. And once you
But
have
the personnel is the personnel. They have who they have on the line.
But we talk about this all the time. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes it's just there's a combination that for whatever reason it works. There is a best 5. I'm not saying it's great. He shouldn't start behind 5 different offensive lines in 5 weeks.
I hear you, but I'm just telling you, I think it's going to look awfully clunky with Jacoby Brissett. And I think that this notion that, we're going to know that the line is actually a little bit better, the receivers are, I don't know if that's going to happen because I don't know if Jacoby
The
Brissett's
receivers,
gonna
I
do
don't
that.
care. Honestly, that's its own thing that they can look like whatever they look like. Put Drake May out there. Let's make sure that the doesn't have to be great, doesn't have to be good. Let's just make sure the offensive line is better before Drake May starts. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well, we could be waiting a while. Anyways, we could argue about this for another 2 hours.
Well, no, if not, then just by Halloween.
All right. There we go. See? That's all I was asking for. I was asking for a take from you on
but
that.
if they can't figure out their best 5 by Halloween, that's
I don't necessarily think that I think they've already kind of figured it out, and this is something that
I know you want to get to this. So.
Something we've talked about plenty on the show, and again, this is not to pat anybody's back or my back or your back or whatever, but we've talked extensively about the offensive line on the show. Kyle and Pembroke emailed in and asked us a question about the line just to begin this conversation, and he said that in minicamp, there's no pads. They can't really touch the defensive linemen, and he doesn't understand why everybody is overreacting or hitting the alarm bells so much with the offensive line until we get into pads and they can actually block people. I agree that there is some truth to what Kyle is saying, right? Like right now, the comparison I keep using, because obviously I got to bring everything back to the Celtics at the moment. They're playing defense in basketball right now. They're trying to keep Luka Doncic out of the paint. On the offensive line, where they're just sliding their feet and kind of.
You really are setting basketball screens.
Yeah. You're not actually blocking people. You're not finishing blocks. You're not using your hands as aggressively. That stuff will all come when the pads come on in training camp. So there is definitely an element of this where you can't really gauge the offensive line this time of year. That's 100% true. With that being said, even though people are going to think that I believe that they have, prime John Hanna and Matt Light out there on the offensive line, it's not so much about the fact that what we're seeing in practice as it is our preconceived notions of what the personnel they have on paper, which we all know it has some deficiencies or has some potential really weak links, especially at the tackle spots, right? So that's where it comes from more so, I would say, is what this group looks like on paper, and then you get into these practices, and it definitely looks bumpy in practice, and so it's a combination of those two things. But we talk about combinations. On the one hand, you can look at the fact that Caden Wallace is playing a lot of right tackle in practice with Mike Onwenu at guard. It's been a lot of from left to right, Juke, Okorafor, Sidiso, David Andrews, Big Mike, Caden Wallace. That's been a lot of what we've seen, especially recently in recent practices. And on the one hand, you could say that they invested in Mike Onwenu as a tackle on the right side. They drafted Caden Wallace and sold to us that they were going to flip positions and move him to left, and he was going to be okay over there. And you could say that the organization was wrong or is so far wrong about that. But at the same time, I've been saying routinely over and over again that I feel like the line that they've played a lot of practice with the last couple of weeks last couple of days has been the right line all along. Caden Wallace at his natural spot at right tackle, Big Mike at his natural spot inside at guard, and then this year you develop 4/5 of this line together, going from City to Day Andrews to Onwenu to Caden Wallace, and then next year we're talking about Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks Jr. at the top of the draft, and you drop the left tackle in, and then really you hope that you're cooking with gas at that point. So I feel like
you need to find another center in a year or two, but
but I feel like that's where we're headed with the offensive line, and when you really look at that on paper, yes, it's a rookie right tackle, but that happens a lot around the league. Rookies start all the time on the line, and it's obviously a big question mark with Jukes Okorafor if he's going to make this work. But at the same time, I feel like that is their best 5. It's less about an indictment on anybody that I just mentioned, and more, I would say, of an indictment on their guard depth without Cole Strange.
Yeah.
Layden Robinson, Nick Leverett, Antonio
Nick
Mafi.
Leverett got a ton of run this spring.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Like, we'll see when the pads come on.
I would have him on the team right now.
If they keep Onwenu at tackle, I think Nick Leverett gets that other spot.
So Nick Leverett, just to kind of play this out.
Yeah.
Nick Leverett, Caden Wallace is probably a better right tackle than Nick Leverett is a right guard.
Right.
So the way that you get the best 5 out there is that you kick Nick Leverett to the bench and you put Onwenu back inside and you let Caden Wallace play right tackle. On paper, eye test, all those types of things, for eye test for what it's worth this time of year, I think that is their best 5 along the offense.
No, this all comes with the massive caveat of we haven't seen them with pads on yet. And maybe when the pads come on, Nick Leverett starts to dominate. But no, I mean, I you know me, I wanted Onwenu at tackle. I just think premium position put the better player there, but I'm kind of coming around to it. Let's wait to put the right tackle out there until we know what they have at quarterback. No, I thought that might get you. That was a joke. Good job. If that's the bet, look, whatever the best 5 is the best 5, and I've been asked about this, like, well, why are they, they paid Mike Onwenu as a tackle. Why are they moving him back to guard? First off, he's still, I think he's the 6th highest paid guard in football if he's playing guard, 3rd highest paid right guard in football. So, which is about right. I mean, they paid him. They gave him a good contract, but it's not like
and that will reset every year when the next guy gets paid.
Right, exactly. And I would add on top of that, well, isn't that, I'd rather have an overpaid right guard than for them to go out there and say, well, we can't block anything unless we move Mike Onwenu inside, but shucks, we paid him as a tackle, so that's where he's going to play. No, at this point, he's here. And he's said he's open to playing both. It's one thing if he's like, I won't move inside. You don't want to, like, shake up the locker room. But he said he's open to both, and he's here. And if that's where you need him to play, to be able to play your best on offense, then that's where he should play. Full stop. So I'm kind of coming around on it. I also wouldn't be opposed to maybe next year you just get another guard and move Mike Onwenu back out there. But for this year, that really might end up being their best 5.
I would have felt a little bit better about Mike Onwenu playing tackle if he had came into camp. And I'm not saying he's out of shape. Yeah. But he's the same shape. Right?
But he played tackle. He played tackle at that shape.
Yeah, but year. I think personally, and this is just my belief. Again, I know that not everybody agrees with me, but personally, I believe that Mike Onwenu's tackle tape is extremely overrated. And it's not anybody's fault. I'm not saying.
Oh, we have a little Patriots breaking news.
Oh, what's that?
Jalen Polk signed his rookie contract. So
yes, that is happening.
Entire rookie contract, entire rookie class is signed. There you go.
Yeah. It's not to say that to begrudge anybody or say that you don't know what you're watching or anything like that. But I believe his tackle tape is based off of the fact that their tackles the last couple of years, other than Mike Onwenu, have struggled. We're comparing in a vacuum Mike Onwenu at tackle this week to Vidarian Lowe at right tackle last week. Obviously, he's going to look a lot better than Vidarian Lowe playing tackle. But when you really go and study his tape at tackle, there's a lot of struggles, especially in pass pro, with having a short corner and getting beat around the edge. There are games from last year. Go watch the Charger game from last year and what Khalil Mack did to him in that game. That was one of the worst games I've seen Mike Onwenu play as a pro. I couldn't believe it. It was that bad. Those games I feel like are there more than people necessarily realize because it's Connor McDermott, it's Vidarian Lowe, it's whoever, right? That's there at tackle, and we're so used to seeing those types of guys just be turnstiles and being like, oh, it has to be better than this, and it is better than that when he was out there. But when I watch him play guard, even though the tape might not be A++ at guard and C at tackle or whatever, it might not be that huge of a gap. I think when he plays guard, you just look at a guy that looks like he's in his natural spot. He looks more comfortable. He looks more sure of himself. And it looks like he just understands how to play the position and the nuances significantly better, which is expected because he's played there so much more than he's played at tackle. I have always thought that Mike Onwenu is a guard. I've always thought his guard tape is much better than his tackle tape. And I have always thought that would be his home long term. And you talk about the contract. Well, in today's NFL, we are in a real era right now of prospering interior defensive linemen, interior rushers, like a Christian Barmore. Every year in the AFC East, the Patriots are going to face Quinnen Williams twice a year. They're going to face Ed Oliver twice a year. Obviously, Christian Wilkins has moved on from Miami, but I'm sure Miami will get a guy in there in the inside as well. Barmore is making $100 million a year, or $100 million total on a contract. All these guys are getting paid left and right at that spot. That has now become a premium position. There's elite players all throughout the league on the interior. So to me, I don't necessarily care as much about the contract and the value and all that stuff, because I think we almost undervalue interior play on both sides of the ball a little bit in our heads, because it's not the typical premium position of edge rusher, left tackle. Those spots, I think, are becoming much more valuable because of who they're going to go up against every single week. I mean, we could pull up their schedule, but just off the top of my head, in terms of the amount of games that they have against elite interior guys, you're going to see it every single week. So I'm not necessarily as caught up on the contract with Onwenu. I think the main thing that you have to look at is Caden Wallace ready? Is he so much better than a Layden Robinson or a Nick Leverett is in the starting lineup that it makes it worth it, and not so much about Onwenu? But if that's the starting five that they settle on, then I feel like their head's in the right place in terms of what's the best five on paper.
Again, we got to see when the pads come on, but I think there's a real chance that ends up being the case.
All right. Summer is here, which means it's time to turn off that alarm and sleep in. Not sure about that. Thanks to Bob's Discount Furniture.
It's summer break, man.
I mean, are we still in school? I don't know.
Isn't it? I mean, we're not in school, but it's a month and a half. Nothing's going on.
Save big by bundling Bob's Bob-O-Pedic mattresses with your choice of fantastic adjustable bases full of fun features like charging ports, under-bed lighting, and Bluetooth speakers. So stop in and sleep better with Bob's Discount Furniture, the official furniture store of the New England Patriots. We have one of those consoles in our couch, what I'm talking about, and it has it's from Bob, so I can talk about it. It has some USB ports and stuff like that.
Great,
yeah, it's actually pretty cool. I like the charging ports; those are nice. All right, let's take some of these phone calls. Sean has been waiting for a while. Thanks for waiting, Sean. What's up?
Hey guys, you've had that argument
17 times.
One of the reasons
yeah,
we've heard it a lot, and I called in about it, but I want to say just that I am on Alex's side, but I don't know if you've heard me because I haven't communicated this well enough, but I do want Drake May to start, and I don't want it to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be good. It just can't be horrendous. Like Chuks Okorafor was a mediocre right tackle. Even if he's mediocre at left tackle, which I don't think he will be, then I'm okay. I just can't see him getting killed. Like, I don't want him to be destroyed, like somebody just flying through without any time at all. I know he can scramble and he can make things happen, but I don't know if he's Clark Kent. I'm not sure how that will work if it's an absolute disaster. That's all I'm saying. I'm hoping that maybe he's better. Chus can handle that, or maybe they'll sign like one of the 5 guys over 30 who's still available who can pass a clean bill of health, like Bakari or Humphreys or Donovan Smith, or anyone that actually played left tackle in the NFL. That's all I'm saying. So I hope it works, but that's where I'm at with that.
Thanks for the call, Sean. I appreciate it. I do think there is a possibility, and this is no insider information whatsoever, but we get 2 weeks into camp and Chuks Okorafor is not looking so hot, then I do think there's a chance that they call a guy like David Bakhtiari or Humphreys or something like that.
I think Humphreys, Bakhtiari, he said clean bill of health.
Yeah.
Bakhtiari's played 10 games in the last 3 years. I think he's done. But no, that's kind of my point. I think he put it like, how's Drake May going to develop if every single play he's making is out of structure?
That's fair.
That's kind of my point.
None of us want it to be like that, just for the record. And I'm not telling you that I don't need Drake May to start week 1 against the Bengals. I'll keep reiterating that. My only point is that I'm not sure if I hope that Jacoby Brissett gives us that barometer of let's just see if it's a complete sieve of an offensive line or not before we throw him out there.
I think he can give us that much.
Yeah, I hope he can. And if he does, then that's great, and then we can figure that out and go from there. I just don't want it to all be hinging on Jacoby Brissett's ability to functionally run an offense.
Well, here's the point. If we get to the point where it comes down to it's about Jacoby Brissett's ability to run an offense, then the offensive line's probably doing well enough. If we don't even get to that point,
Yeah.
then that means the offensive line's not ready.
Yeah, it's the number one concern with this team right now. And I still come back to the fact that I'm at the point now where I don't have any concerns about Drake May being ready to contribute as a rookie. I don't know. I don't want to put a week on it yet. I'm not ready to do that. But I have no concerns whatsoever about Drake May's developmental timeline. We're all concerned about the same things. We're all concerned about, is the supporting cast going to be ready for him? And if that means buying time for a little while with Jacoby Brissett, my concern is that at some point it's like, there's a difference between buying time and waiting an entire year. And I don't think that they need to wait the entire year on Drake May's side of things, right? On his side of the street. So it almost just would be disappointing or, a little bit of a downer to just not see him out there earlier when we know what he's capable of, just because we're so concerned about what everybody else is capable of. But I do want to reiterate 17 times that I am not saying that I need to see him week one. I would like to see Drake May start probably the majority of the games this season. Yeah. All right. Jay is in Arkansas. What's up, Jay?
Hey, guys.
Hey.
I guess it's just the topic of the day, right? Doldrums summer, here we are talking offensive line. But like the previous caller mentioned, you guys have talked about it a lot. I think I've always kind of fallen in with Alex on this. I just don't see how it can be so bad. And you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but it's just funny the way narratives kind of take on a life of their own. All the guys like you all who we all love and love the content and need it, but on the different platforms, the narrative becomes, well, the offensive line was just so horrible last year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even when I guess it was Lowe who was eventually out there, I don't think it was just a turnstile at the end of the year, maybe the last month of the season. I thought it at some point did get solidified a little bit, and I just don't see how he couldn't be a little bit better. And like the previous caller mentioned, even if Chucks is just competent out there, I'm optimistic. And even Bedard surprised me a little bit. He said just because Tatum Wallace got moved to the right side these last 2 days, well, now he's worried. I just don't get why that's call for worry. If that's your best five, if that's where you want to let him play for a while, if that's what you want to give a try, I don't see why it is such a need to sound the alarm. So I'm optimistic that the offensive line will be fine, and if so, I'm okay with that. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
awesome,
it.
Jay. Thanks for the call. To the last point, I'm with the caller, and I think we're both with the caller. The best five is the best five.
Well, I think what it comes down to, and let me answer the first part first.
Yeah.
About, it got better at the end of the year last year, so is it going to get worse? It got better at the end of the year last year because they took the first 6 weeks to experiment and move guys around, and they finally moved Mike Onwenu out to tackle, and that gave them their best five. And that's basically this timeline I'm describing for Drake May, is how long does it take them to get to that point where they have a consistent group. As for Keion Wallace moving, I mean, if that's their best five, it's a net positive. The potential, I don't want to say potential downside, the risk that comes with that is, well, Keion Wallace was going to be your backup left tackle. So if he's now your starting right tackle, what if Chuks Okorafor doesn't work out or gets hurt? Are you moving Keion Wallace back to left and kicking Michael Onwenu back outside? You could do that, but Keion Wallace, assuming he's your starting right tackle, probably hasn't worked a ton at left.
Yeah.
And he's not going to be great out there. Okay, so he's out. Now it's basically between Calvin Anderson, Vidarian Lowe, and Tyrone Wheatley to decide who your backup left tackle is. Anderson got hurt, and the other two struggled in that spot last year. So Calvin Anderson, in a sneaky way, is important to this whole thing.
Yeah, I think right now, to me, he's the most equipped, I would say.
He's the only guy that's actually played left tackle in the NFL.
To be the third tackle. I hate calling him a swing tackle because swing tackles are a little bit different.
No, he is. He's played both sides. In the NFL.
I don't. He to me is their most likely third tackle, but yeah. I will say Vidarian Lowe I'm not saying that Vidarian Lowe was great. Okay, no matter where he played, but certainly better at left than he was right.
Yes, but that's what it comes down to. So that's where I don't know that it's not reason not to do it. You need your best 5. It's not reason not to do it, but then you have to answer this question of if Chuks Okorafor just can't figure out the left side, or if he gets hurt, what's your new best 5? Because there's a chance you end up taking a big step back.
Yeah.
Because it's as much as we've kind of talked about the starting tackles being an issue, depth is as big of an, like they just don't, the whole tackle position is a wild card right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And before we take some more of these calls, I just want to talk a little bit about the receiver position as well, because we're going to probably spend a lot of time now that we got fired up at each other about the quarterbacks. I think a lot of these calls are going to be about this conversation. Receiver position, really, a couple of different things. First of all, we did Tyquan Thornton for a day again, and then he doesn't practice.
We got
again.
the full Tyquan Thornton experience. He popped, then he struggled, and then he wasn't on the practice field.
He popped something on his hamstring or something, and he's not on the.
I tried to tell you. I tried. Did I not try to tell you?
Every time, man. That guy is the definition of if this was flag football or 7-on-7 or something like
Madden
that.
playing without injuries on.
Remember back in the day on Madden when Bethel Johnson was like the best player in the game?
You made the trick was to make Bethel Johnson your backup quarterback, so he'd be the holder on field goals, and then you run the fake field goal pass and you roll him out, and he could just run for days.
I just remember
you get the edge every time.
I just remember Bethel Johnson as a receiver because he was like a 99.
Well, that too.
Speed.
No, he was a complete cheat code.
It was
complete cheat
You would have
code.
thought he was Randy Moss in the game, right?
He
Like,
was. He was. No, I used to win like MVPs with him.
Yeah. Anyways, that guy.
Shout out Bethel Johnson.
Tyquan Thornton is the biggest enigma I've ever seen because he obviously has a skill set that should translate in the NFL, but there's just something always wrong with him. Like it's just a consistency thing or it's a physical, ailment, obviously. I don't know why he missed Wednesday's practice, so I shouldn't speculate, but the point being he wasn't out there.
Given his history.
Yeah. The other elements of these two, Jalen Polk really starting to flash on Monday and Wednesday in minicamp practices. That one right there to me is telling me that this is a guy that maybe took a few weeks, few beats to catch up with the playbook and understand the offense and grasp what they're asking him to do. Now it seems like he's making more and more plays as we progress here. My guess is that it's a little bit more related to what the mental side of things than him not having the physical ability. Because when you watch him run routes and practice even against air and just watch how he moves, he's not the fastest guy. We knew that, but he's got that sudden quick twitch movement ability that typically lends itself to separation. He's got that ability to kind of just suddenly cut and make sharp angular moves with his body. And then you obviously know that he's got the great hands and the great catch profile too. So all those elements, I would say, tell you that he's got the tools to be able to be a productive guy and get open. I was trying to remember back, Tyquan has always had these little flashes or these little moments in practices, especially in non-padded practices. But I don't remember N'Keal Harry or Tyquan Thornton looking this, I don't know what the word is, just polished, like just, kind of like he belongs as much as Jalen Polk has. I'm not ready. Similar to Drake May, I'm not ready to crown him yet, but I feel like we're headed in a very positive direction with Jalen Polk.
Yeah, he's kind of one of these guys like you don't necessarily see any major weakness with him, and we still got to see what his standout trait is. But he goes out, he does everything at the base level is strong. The base level looks to be very strong, and like he's going to be a contributor at this league. To what extent, we'll see, but. Yeah, I think he's off to a good start.
Yeah, I agree with that too. How about Keion Booty? We do this every summer where it's like all these fringe roster guys. It's whichever one you like the most, right? It's Keion Booty, it's Tyquan, it's Jalen Reagor, it's this group of receivers here at the back end of the roster. I think we can comfortably say that Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker will be on this team. Kendrick Bourne will be on this team in some capacity, whether it's on the active roster or it's on IR or PUP. The rest of them, though, is one big cluster of mid, to be honest with you. But that is almost what makes it hard to project who's going to make
We've done this a few times the last few years.
It's hard to project who's going to make the team because they're all kind of meh, right? They're all in the same talent level in terms of tier. Do you think Keion Booty has a real chance to make this team?
It's tough. It's tough because he's not really playing in the kicking game.
Yeah.
And his biggest issue's been consistency. Like, he's had flashy practices like that, but he's got to do it time and time again. I still think from that group. So we're going, the locks are Polk, Baker, Pop. I think Bourne's going to be ready.
Bourne in some capacity.
I think he's going to be on the week 1 roster.
Okay, I
Just
hope
based off what Gerard Mayo said the other day. And then, I mean, Osborne maybe, but if we're talking 5th or 6th spot, I still think Jalen Reagor is the inside track. He was highly involved in the spring, played well, plays a significant role in the kicking game, which when they're working on special teams during practice, the only 2 receivers who aren't a part of that are Juju and Tyquan.
Right.
And if you're going to be the 5th or 6th receiver, you need to be able to do something else. So I think Jalen Reagor has the inside track on that spot, and then KJ Osborne just because of his contract and all that. But on my roster projection, I had 6 receivers, including those 2 guys. I still think if a guy like Juju has a strong summer, maybe you can trade him.
Yeah.
But there's too much traffic ahead for Keion Booty for a guy that just hasn't been consistent.
Yeah, I agree with that. He always, even last summer, he had 1 or 2 practices where I remember circling him and saying that this is a guy that was flashing today, but it's not stacking practice after practice after practice. And if he's going to make the team, that's what it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be the summer of Keion Booty where he's just making catches left and right. I don't know if we're there yet. And I would also just mention that the legal stuff and the off the field stuff is still exists there with him, and that suspension could just come down at any time from the league from all the stuff that happened over the offseason with him. So it's a difficult situation there with Booty off the field too. What's going on with Juju? I mean, what do they do with Juju? I know we talk about this a lot too, but there was a play on yesterday's practice, when he was coming over the middle of the field, and is it Giles or Giles? Joe Giles Harris. I'm going to say Joe Giles Harris was the linebacker in coverage, and it's no slight on Joe Giles Harris, but we're not exactly talking about prime Ray Lewis here. And Juju Smith-Schuster could not get away.
He's a linebacker. You're a wide receiver. You should pull away from a linebacker.
It's a guy lining up in the slot that can't pull away from a practice squad linebacker. And that told me right then and there, that juice for Juju, no pun intended, that is not any better than what it was last year if he's still not being able to explode past a guy like Joe Giles Harris.
Yeah. I just, again, I don't see where the path is for him. He's not standing out, and Jalen Polk's going to play a very similar role, and you need to have Jalen Polk on the field. Like, he needs to be playing. He needs to be developing.
Yeah.
So if Juju's here, what's he doing?
The path is that it's $12.3 million that you have to eat. And I understand it's just money to all of us, but
unless you trade him.
I just don't know how you're going to get anything for him in a trade.
See, like, I get that. Maybe this is me being lazy. Maybe this is a lazy take. They traded Jonnu Smith.
Yes, but they traded Jonnu Smith in a situation where I believe Arthur Smith was aware that the scheme didn't fit him and that he was going to use him in a better way with the familiarity from Tennessee.
So
it's just
you call the Chiefs.
I guess, but the Chiefs have added a lot of receivers. You know,
they added any good receivers?
Yeah, they added Worthy.
All right, that's one.
And they added Hollywood.
All right, that's one.
No, what do you mean that's one? Hollywood's an NFL receiver.
He'll be fine there.
He's a better player than Juju. So, and then let's see. Maybe is there a world? Okay, let's just.
Or somebody gets hurt.
Let's play this out a little with the Chiefs. The way that Juju Smith-Schuster is valuable to the Chiefs is if Rashee Rice gets suspended.
Right.
So maybe that does happen.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
it's possible.
Or maybe some other team, somebody gets hurt and they just need a guy to
fill a roster
spot. Round out
for $12 million.
Well, it won't be $12 million.
It'll be 9 and change, I think.
It will be, I'll tell you, 7.5.
Okay, I thought it was a little bit more than that, but still.
If I'm reading this right, which there's a chance I'm not, but if I'm reading this right,
I knew it was somewhere between the 7 to 10 million range.
Okay.
That number is still for, like, your fifth receiver, that's a lot of money to just have him sitting there just as depth or an emergency type of receiver. Now, if the Chiefs are looking at it and say we're going to win a Super Bowl again this year, Rashee Rice is suspended for the first 8 games of the season because of all of his antics, then maybe that's a different conversation. But now you're hoping that a lot of dominoes are going to fall your way for that to happen.
Or maybe Juju agrees to, he's still only 28. Maybe agrees to redo his deal if he goes somewhere he knows he's going to get a chance to succeed and, hits free agency at the end of the year or something like that. There's, to quote in my station, the cap can be maneuvered.
That's about all we're going to be quoting from your station right now. Jalen Reagor, another guy that made some plays. See, we're just throwing a bag of mid at you. Jalen Reagor is another guy that I believe is competing with Tyquan directly. Yeah. And when you add in the return value and the fact that his field stretching ability is not, I would actually almost say that it's pretty close to on par with Tyquan. Yeah. He's not as fast as Tyquan, but he's more physical.
Same neighborhood.
And it's in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he can return kicks. It just feels like that's a much better, more clearer path.
And he also seems like, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into this, and we only saw 4 of 10 practices. He seems to be hanging out with Polk and Baker a lot.
Yeah.
So he's kind of in that group, and I said it before, Reagor to me is the inside track on that last spot.
Yeah, I can agree with that as well. I think that puts a bow on the receivers. To get back to these calls here, and then I have a funny email to read you that you're going to enjoy.
Oh, boy.
Brendan is in Michigan. What's up, Brendan? Brendan. Going once. All right, call us back and we'll get you on. Patty's in Agawam. What's up, Patty?
What's up, guys? Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Hey, what's up?
So I had a question regarding Mr. Drake May because I want to see him start as soon as possible. Is there a scenario come camp where, he's just far in leaps and bounds better than Jacoby Brissett? Is there any way they keep him off the field? Do you think they want him to just sit and wait for maybe minimum 4 weeks, or do you think they say the kid's ready, let's get him in there, let's have him start?
Yeah, thanks for the call, Patty. Patty, I think you just hit on exactly what my frustration is.
Yeah.
Is exactly that. I believe that there is a world that we might all already be living in partially where Drake May is just so much better than Jacoby Brissett. And the only reason why you're holding him out is you want to call it out of discipline.
Yeah.
Just to be nice. Out of discipline for the rest of this. That just stinks. And that to me would be an indictment. And it just, that to me would be a real indictment on what they did this offseason. And I would hold that against Elliott Wolf.
Okay, but it would because they didn't add a real left tackle.
That would be his fault.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. But I don't know that we can get to that. And this isn't a Drake May thing. This isn't a Patriots thing. Like, I don't think you can get a full evaluation on him just the way the offseason's set up. Unless he plays a ton in the preseason.
Which he I don't know necessarily about a ton, but he'll play.
So let's see how much he plays.
Extensive time.
Let's see how much he plays in the preseason. Let's see how much he plays. I don't care if he's lighting up the third string defense, whatever.
No, we have that one joint practice.
Right. Let's see what he does in the preseason. Because that was it with Mac Jones. It was we were not talking about him starting till a joint practice with the Giants.
Yeah.
And let's see what he looks like in pressure. Let's see what he looks like against the new defense. I think the way, even from the Mac Jones year, there's been so many changes. I think it's so hard to definitively know if a guy can be that dominant over the course of an NFL preseason because of the way, not because of Drake May or anything, just because of the way it's structured. I think if you have that much conviction about him, I think you're just kidding yourself because you really haven't seen that much.
Yeah.
Not that, and sorry. So, and then it's, all right, well, we didn't see it, but then you're going to sit him and play him? It's, well, no. There's always going to be a level of unknown. I'm just saying let's answer one unknown, the offensive line, before we start dealing with another unknown, Drake May.
Yeah, I think all of that's fair, and this is one element, too, of it for me is I would love to see Drake May once we get into camp, and I'm off the whole they need to get him more reps.
Yeah.
They're getting him
No,
reps.
the reps are now correct. I mean,
Right.
Bailey Zappi, I think, had one drive yesterday.
And I do want to just quickly touch on the other quarterbacks before we wrap this up. But back to the Drake May point, I believe there's going to be a world where he's lighting it up in practice at times, and that world actually He didn't light up last practice because the start was horrible, but the end of practice was certainly very impressive in the red zone. I thought from him through multiple very good balls to Booty and Polk in that session, but he's doing it against Mikey Victor and Azizi Hearn and those types of players. So the way that I am sold that this is what Patty was kind of getting at, that this is just worlds better with Drake May, is if we start to see him get opportunities against Christian Gonzalez and Jonathan Jones and Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers. If he's making those types of throws against those guys, then we need to have that conversation of, is he just so much better than the rest of the quarterbacks that he should be playing? I also think, and I don't think this is the number one thing, because the rest of the locker room and the rest of the organization is going to have to realize that this is bigger than September 2024, like you like to say. But there's 52 other guys on the team. There's a whole new coaching staff, brand new coaching staff. There's a brand new front office. These guys have no idea how long the leash is. None. And they probably have some goodwill with Robert Kraft that the leash is going to be a little bit longer because they know it's rebuilding and they know they're starting from the ground up. But don't kid yourself that this new regime does not want to start the Gerard Mayo era 2-6 or 1-7.
Yeah.
And if he's the best player and he gives them the best chance to win, and then you have to go into that locker room and say, well, his long-term development's more important than us winning this season, then you have to have 52 guys that are willing to stomach that. And that's not always the easiest thing. This, to me, was a big reason why Mac Jones started right away. Everybody that was watching the practices saw that Cam Newton didn't have it anymore. And Mac Jones was a better player than Cam Newton. Bill, to me, went with Mac Jones as quickly as he did because a big reason why was because of all of that, because of the locker room, because the other 53 guys are important too. 52 guys are important too. So there's that element of it as well. That's what I'm getting at with all of the Drake May stuff, is just exactly how Patty put it. If he's the best player and he's clearly by everybody's eye test, our eye test, which means nothing, but our eye test, but most importantly, the coach's eye test and the people inside the building, then it's going to be hard to convince the entire organization to put him on the bench.
I just think it's, I don't know, maybe it's staying with you at practice. Like, I feel like you and some other people are already there. I think it's too soon.
I'm already there because of my priors. I'm going to admit that. You know how much I've thought of him in the draft.
Well, you know, my big thing with the draft is it's nurture as much as nature, and let's see. You know, it's different. It's different. The NFL's simply different, and he's not in the ACC anymore. Let me see it against NFL defenders before I have that much conviction.
You say that. We got an email or somebody commented in a good point about the ACC point you keep making. Clemson, NC State, even Duke.
Yeah.
Last year, those were some pretty good defenses, Alex. I gotta admit, I liked that email. That was a good one.
Yeah, he struggled against a lot of those teams.
He was up and down, but he also didn't have anything.
And that's not me saying he's going to be bad, but I'm just saying, like, he's young. Like, he's got to get better. You've got to allow him time. Drake May, the worst thing that could happen, and just hang with me here, like, understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
The worst thing that could happen is Drake May's rookie season is the best season of his career.
What? He peaked.
That is a worst case scenario. Like, he's going to get, but he should be better than he was last year.
Usually, and I don't want to spend too much more time on this.
By the way, wait, what were those three teams?
NC State, Clemson, Duke. There's one other team that isn't.
I think you said Miami. Miami sucked.
No, not Miami.
Oh.
I thought there was one other team in the ACC that had a pretty good defense, but I can't.
Florida State, he didn't play them.
No.
Duke, 28 of 43, 342 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, 2 rushing touchdowns.
He played well against
Duke. He
Duke.
did play really well against Duke. That was one of his best games.
Yeah, both years, actually.
Yeah. Gamer, rivalry game. Yeah. Showed up. Love that, honestly. Yeah. Clemson, 16 of 36, 209 yards, touchdown pick. Did run for 67 yards on 10 carries, no touchdowns. North Carolina State, but at this, it's tough. These were his last 3 games, and the roster was falling apart.
Yeah.
22 of 38, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 9 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown.
All right, before we
so it's a roller coaster.
Yeah, no, he wasn't great in any of those games, really. Fair enough. The ACC might have had a little bit better competition than you think. That's all.
There were a couple teams. For the most part, it was not a pleasant experience.
Do you want to hear the email ragging on me first?
Yes.
Before we go.
Wait, that was ragging on me.
No, it's ragging on me.
Oh, all right.
So in PU,
Yeah.
we were talking about somebody emailed from the UK and yada yada yada. I might have made a 1776 joke. I might have.
Okay.
And Carrie from
Here you go, taking shots at people on Pat's Unfiltered again.
Carrie from the UK is not happy with me. You ready for this?
Wait, what was the joke you made?
He said something about he picked Patriots because of England being in the name of the team and the colors, red coats, red. And I was like, oh, how did it go for them in 1776?
All right.
Right?
Look at you knowing history.
Not sure why Evan seems to be so anti-British, at least on the last show,
Ooh.
in salty fashion referencing 1776. Let's see how that goes for you when you have to travel over here in October and immerse yourself with the UK fans. Know your audience and be professional.
You guys show up in like an Uncle Sam outfit now.
I didn't think it could be more. It gets worse. I didn't think it could be more nasal, patronizing, and irritating.
Oh.
Yet here we are. Look forward to greeting you, Lazar. Carrie, it was a joke. Okay? Okay?
No, you got to show up.
Down, okay?
You got to show up like
I made a joke. I'm sorry.
Like Apollo Creed. You got to get the top hat with the stars and the stripes.
Yeah.
You got to get the vest.
Can I get? Is James Brown alive?
I don't know. I think so.
Can I get Living in America?
Yeah, exactly. James Brown died in 2006.
Yeah, I think he's dead.
Yeah, okay, so not even close.
Terry, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. I was only joking. I was just messing around.
No, you got to play into this now. You got to play into this. Also, like, never mind. Just keep going.
It's 300 years ago. I think we can make jokes about it now, right? I mean, I don't know. All right. Anyways, moving over to the defense.
Are they that mad that they lost the colonies?
Moving over to the defense. The best thing and the worst thing I can tell you about why no one's talking about the defense. Obviously, the offense is more interesting, and Drake May's more interesting. It's more sexy. The best and worst thing I can tell you about why we're always so offense heavy, other than that, is that the regular contributors on the defensive side of the ball are just kind of doing their thing for the most part. And
it's the same guys. They didn't really add anybody on defense.
Yeah.
They didn't really lose anybody on defense. I mean this in the most complimentary way possible. It's pretty much the same defense.
Yeah, and it's the same cast of characters, to your point, of Christian Barmore and Jawan Bentley and Matthew Judon and Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers, and now Christian Gonzalez is back. Yeah. It's just the same dudes balling out. Which is what we expected.
The one big conversation and I think it's a fun one. I think this is going to be the most competitive battle in camp when you talk about the collective talent competing for the position. We know Gonzalez is going to be on one boundary.
Yeah.
It does. Am I wrong in reading the tea leaves that Jonathan Jones is going to be back in the slot?
Not necessarily.
Kind of getting those vibes.
It depends on. And we've
talked about this. They might go matchup-y a bit, but like.
Yeah.
All right, so I think I'll put Alex Austin. I'm ready to put him ahead of the rest of that group.
I'm almost in lock territory with Alex Austin.
Yeah, but then there's going to be one or two more. So in the slot, you're going to have Jonathan Jones, Marcus Jones, right?
Yep.
On the boundary, you're going to have Christian Gonzalez, Alex Austin.
Yes.
And it's from there that it gets really interesting. So you have Isaiah Bolden, Marcellus Dial, Marco Wilson. I'll even throw in Azizi Hearn and Mikey Victor because they started making every day there was a new corner that was making plays. Those guys are all battling for boundaries, one or two boundary spots. And then you have Sean Wade who can give you some boundary, some slot. Maybe Bolden factors in the slot. There's so many you have. I think all of these guys are NFL rosterable players. Yeah. They're all solid third to fourth corners. Maybe Marco Wilson's a little bit more than that. But, all these guys are going to be on a roster. It's just, is it going to be the Patriots roster or somebody else's? These are guys that if they get waived, I think are going to get signed elsewhere. So it's going to be really, really competitive to see who gets those last corner spots or two. And we got to figure out where Jonathan Jones is going to be first to really clarify that. But I had 7 corners on my roster projection.
I had 6, or we'll have 6 when it comes out. We have so much Brady content that we're going to publish it next week. But it's close with defensive line. It depends on how you categorize Keion White. I think
I characterize him as line.
Is the biggest tipping point maybe, but
are you not doing edge anymore?
Oh, I am.
So what?
Sometimes I don't know.
He's
I don't know how
edge.
I think he's an edge now too, but that's besides the point.
I'm not doing edge.
Is corner the best group on the roster? Because
Yes.
I think it might be.
Yes. Oh, it's not. I didn't realize that was a discussion.
Well, defensive line has Barmore, Wise, Godshaw. I mean,
It doesn't have the depth. It doesn't have the.
No, but those are three of your
I mean, I would say
best players.
we're projecting a little more with. You know what? To be fair,
because it's only a month at Christian Gonzalez, who we both love. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong.
Okay.
But
So I would say defensive line. Let me put it this way:
higher floor on the defensive line.
defensive line is the most proven position group on this roster. Corner has the potential to be the best group.
Yeah, I shouldn't say it that way. I think this cornerback group is stacked. It is very
Now,
good.
Imagine if they added Steph Gilmore.
I don't even know if they need to. Not to like humble brag. I talked to him a little bit about this last night.
I heard, yeah.
Yeah, he's not sure. It did feel nice that he remembered me. That was cool.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it was not bad. We had a lot of really long conversations actually when he was here.
Yeah.
And about football, obviously. But he would he would be the cherry on top for the group for sure. But I've really, really liked, and I believe all of us have really liked what Alex Austin has shown us.
Yeah.
And if you sign Stephon Gilmore, then Alex Austin's not playing.
No, but you're rotating.
Yeah, but rotating four guys, I guess. I think Marcus Jones, we're not underselling him by any means is the wrong term, but just he's going to have a bigger role than I believe we've currently, because you look at it, Alex Austin being on the outside would probably mean Jonathan Jones plays nickel. Marcus Jones to me is a good enough player in the secondary to find a way to get him on the field.
Like he's new Miles Bryant.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see if his snap count is as high as Miles Bryant was playing.
That's true.
A ton of snaps at the end. But Marcus Jones is a good enough football player that they need to find ways to get him on the field. So that'll be interesting. Jonathan Jones and Christian Gonzalez are going to be starting in some capacity. Whether Jones is on the inside or the outside remains to be seen. And then I really believe that Alex Austin is a football player. Like, not just, he's a 53-man roster guy. I believe Alex Austin's going to be a big-time contributor. Like, this guy, I believe, can really play. He gave up a catch to Keion Booty under route in red zone towards the end of practice. Yeah. And I asked him when he was walking off the podium after practice on Wednesday, I was like, in a game, you're punching that ball out and tackling him to the ground, right? and he was like, oh, yeah. He was like, for sure. He's not catching that one on me in a game. So he did give up a couple at the end of practice to Booty is why I bring this up. But one of them I would say in a live game situation would not have been a completion, which is important context. In general, Alex Austin, as saw him last night, the Jason McCourty role, right? And having that third outside guy, I'm ready to put Alex Austin almost in the lock category. He's in that next, not on the bubble, but not a lock. He's like in that middle tier for me right now. But I believe with a strong couple weeks of training camp to start, once we get to the preseason game portion, after that first 15 days of camp, I think we're going to be talking about Alex Austin as a lock.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely.
Anybody else on defense? The one other guy I would mention, thought he had a nice practice yesterday, was Keion White, who just continues to stack the days.
He's been excellent.
Love how much they're moving him around the front. That, to me, is where his path to being really impactful is going to have to be. That's going to take some creativity from Gerard Mayo and DeMarcus Covington and in the group to get that out of him. But the more I watch him, even though I don't think that body type wise is not exactly a perfect comp, but the Trey Flowers role of inside outside, sometimes up, sometimes down. Trey Flowers played a lot more down, if I remember correctly, in a 3-point stance. But just in general, that those types of guys in the past that the Patriots have had, if Keion White can add inline stand-up inline rushing where he's on 2 feet, but he's lining up over the center and guard on 2 feet, and he's rushing the passer from those positions, because now you're going to have Keion White in there on the interior with a Christian Barmore, with a Judon on the outside. Now you're really talking about a bunch of different inflection points for the offensive line, where you're going to have someone in that group is going to get a one-on-one, right? Yeah. You can't double everybody. So somebody in that group is going to get a one-on-one, and it's probably going to end up being a lot of Keion White getting those matchups. And if he can win those matchups, his production's going to go through the roof. He's going to be able to really
So
produce.
You're in on Keion White now?
I'm in on the idea.
Okay.
I still need to see if he's more of that. Is he a Dallas Thomas, or is he somebody that's going to be able to
don't throw that name around.
You know what I mean, though? Like, is he somebody that, in theory, it sounds great, the versatility, the ability to play inside and outside, all of it sounds awesome. But is it going to actually amount to anything, or is it just going to look good?
Yeah, I'll see when the pads come on. We've said a number of times. One other player on defense, Jaylen Hawkins, is going to make this team. I'll tell you that right now.
Yep.
And Patriots fans just got to get to know. I think we talked about this last week, so I'll just kind of run through it. But he's not going to play 99% of the snaps like Devin McCourty, but when they want a little bit more range in the deep part of the field, when they want to be able to put Duggar and Peppers both in the box, he's going to be a guy they can bring in, go a little bit smaller. I think you called it big nickel, big dime, whatever last week.
Yeah.
And just give them the flexibility to play that way.
I love the idea of them being able to play 3-corner dime with Hawkins up top, and then Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers more as robbers or man coverage on the tight end. This is what they used to do with Harmon, Chung, and McCourty. And all those three guys had homes on those money downs, whether it was third down just in general, or it was 2-minute and a half, those types of situations. All Jaylen Hawkins has to be is Deron Harmon. And I don't say that to take a shot at Deron Harmon, but he doesn't need to be Ed Reed back there. He doesn't need to be this elite middle of the field player. If he can just be serviceable back there, and then when the ball comes his way, make plays on it like Deron Harmon used to do, then that is enough to be able to put Kyle Duggar and Jabril Peppers closer to the line of scrimmage.
Right. And those are the guys that are going to make the plays.
Right. And those are the guys that can fly around, and now all of a sudden you're freeing those guys up and taking them out of the box, right? Like they're in a box when they play deep, where they have to play up there, and they have
out of a box, but you're putting them in the box, just to be clear. The terminology is a little.
You're putting them in a role that is a positional role when those guys need to be instinctive football players and fly into the ball. And hopefully, just having a guy like Hawkins up top will allow them to do that.
Right.
He's started 25 games over a couple years.
This is not like some random end of the roster player they found. This is a guy, not quite Adrian Phillips, but like kind of similar background to Adrian Phillips a little bit.
Yeah, there's some.
Maybe I'm just saying that because he came from the Chargers. But.
Yeah, there's just a little bit more there than maybe I thought initially. I'll admit, with a guy like Jaylen Hawkins, and how much is it? And this is partially tongue in cheek. How much is it that he's wearing 32? Because he just kind of looks like Devin McCourty.
No,
from a
honestly, me mentally, when I see the guys like Mitchell Wilcox, I wrote Mitchell Wilcox off right away because I was like, they gave him 87. They're not serious about him.
Yeah.
So like, I usually have the opposite reaction when I see those numbers. I'm like, you're not that guy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take you seriously. But Hawkins, he's been playing well.
Yeah, he's been decent. All right, DC is in New Hampshire. What's up, DC?
Hey guys. So I was just thinking about like the international player reserve spots on rosters and practice spots, and I was thinking like how the game is just not developed enough internationally, where you're getting worthwhile skill guys and line guys, and so it makes me think that international reserve spots, like, they're wasted unless you're doing anything other than using it as a pipeline for kickers. And I'm like kind of radicalized by Brandon Aubrey, who went from like a middling American soccer player to an all-pro kicker in like 2 years. So it makes me think like no team should be drafting a kicker at all. We should be looking at like international soccer players and using that reserve spot as just like a pipeline for kickers. And I mean, that's about it. I was just thinking about the game internationally, and Brandon Aubrey just kind of has got me thinking things of like just rethinking the kicker position. He's radicalized me. Thanks, guys. Love the show.
Yeah, no problem, DC. Thanks for the call. Well, that was a perfect segue, DC, because I was about to clear the floor for Alex to talk about the kicker competition.
I'm confused, though. What is he? Brandon Aubrey's American.
Yeah, but I think he's just saying that why don't you just go over to the Premier League and try to poach somebody from the Premier League that's got a huge leg and use that roster exempt spot, which for the record only counts against the 90. So Jotham Russell right now is the Patriots.
It doesn't count against the 90.
No, my point is, I guess it's a better way of putting it. Jonathan Russell's the 91st guy on the team right now, but if they put him on the 53-man roster, he counts at that point.
Yeah, no, the whole point about the game
it's not
being
like
under
he can carry 54 guys. Is my point.
Right. The whole point about the game being underdeveloped in other countries is why that spot exists. You're bringing in players that are project players.
Yeah.
You're bringing in players who are good athletes and teaching them how to play football. If you find a kicker that can kick, you're not making him your international pathway player. You're actually putting him on the roster. Those guys aren't eligible to play. We did this, remember, with Jakob Johnson, his first year. He started as an IPP player, but he was like making plays all summer. And then we had this big debate of, well, do you list him as IPP and then you don't have him all year? Or in case you need a fullback, do you actually keep him on the roster? And it was the practice squad.
Yeah.
And they could have just moved him there on IPP, but they moved him there regularly, so they risked losing him, but he was eligible to play, and then he ended up playing. So I get what you're saying about the kickers, but no, you wouldn't use the IPP spot on a kicker. If you think the kicker's good, he's on the roster. He's not on the IPP.
Yeah, fair enough. So speaking of kickers, is exactly what I was going to ask you about next. So you correct me if I'm wrong, but my numbers were Chad Ryland was 5 for 8 and Joey Sly was 8 for 8. Now these are not.
Oh, I went back to the spring. I think I had. Well, Sly would have been 5 for 8, and I think I had Ryland at like 15 and 19.
Okay, so
hang on, I have my roster projection. It's on there. Let me find it.
This is not live, right? When they're kicking here, but it's the what.
Well, did you notice what happened during the field goal period yesterday?
No.
So
this is why I clear the floor for you on this.
They're doing. They're like alternating. So they both kicked from. They both kicked from whatever it was, like 32, 37, 42, 47.
Yeah.
So each would get a kick at one of the spots. And they get back to 47, and it's just like normal, middle hash, all that, and they both hit their first kicks.
Yeah.
Then Chad Ryland goes up for a second kick. When he does, as he's like right before the ball snapped, Gerard Mayo walks by and says something to him. I don't know what he said, but he walks by and says something to him, and he missed. The next snap.
Wait, is this Chad Ryland?
Chad Ryland, yep. Then Joey Sly goes. As he's right before the snap, Gerard Mayo calls timeout. He ices him.
Yeah.
And he missed. And then he came back on the next one, which was live, and hit it. But so I had Ryland as 15 and 19.
Fragile, Marine. That's what that is. A bunch of fragile guys out there.
I had Ryland as 15 and 19, but if you remember, 2 of it for the spring, OTAs and minicamp.
Yeah.
2 of his kicks went directly over one of the uprights.
So we don't know.
No. If it goes directly over the upright, it's good.
But you're 100% sure it went directly over the upright.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was standing behind the goal.
I thought you were saying it like it was.
No, I'm saying like, but he's like flirting with it. Like
Yeah.
he by inches. He had another one that he just snuck in, and then he had another one yesterday that hit the flag on the top.
Yeah.
So, I mean, 15 and 19 turns into 10 and 19 like that.
Right.
Sly was, I think he was 6 of 8 because he only kicked in minicamp. But Ryland was erratic. They didn't give Sly a real chance, which tells me they don't necessarily see him as a real option. Yes or no? Evan, you tell me, based on what I'm telling you here. Is the Patriots kicker, week 1, currently on the roster?
I've thought about this a little bit, and my answer is, I think, the same as yours, which is no.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I
don't know who it is, but I don't think he's here.
As much as it's tough, because are they going to be a 10-win team with a good kicker? Probably not. If they are 10-win, but my point is, if they are a 10-win team, it's not going to be necessarily because of the kicker. It's going to be because Drake May is awesome and they're a 10-win
Right, but
team.
this goes back to that thing of you have a duty to the other 52 guys in the locker room to give them a chance to compete.
That I totally agree with, and that's sort of where I was going with it too. At the same time, can they upgrade the kicker? Certainly.
Yes.
And the one thing that I noticed between Ryland and Sly, I didn't chart all the numbers as closely as you did, obviously. But the one thing I did notice is that I don't think either of them have it from like plus 48. Like both those guys' legs were.
I mean,
dicey.
Ryland does because he did it in college. He might not anymore, but I mean, he hit those kicks in college.
It's tough for Chad Ryland. I don't feel for them often. To be honest,
You just hate special teams like so much.
No, not just about special. I just mean in general. Like when people say, "Oh, I
No,
feel for
you
that
just
guy."
don't. You
No, I'm not
have
talking
no
about
sympathy for
I'm
the
not
special
talking about
teamers.
special teams. I'm talking about athletes in general because they're getting paid a ton of money to play a sport, right? But at the same time, when you have as disastrous of a rookie season as Chad Ryland did, having the mental fortitude and the mental fortitude to bounce back from that and go on to have a solid NFL career, that's got to be really difficult because your confidence has to be completely shot, and that's a confidence-based position. That's 100% a confidence-based thing. There's definitely a world, and this is sort of how I'm feeling at this point with Chad. Chad Ryland might just be broken mentally. It might just not. He might have serious yips issues at this point because he was a much better college kicker.
Yeah, so
this.
Chad Ryland in college was 18 of 22 from 40 to 49. He was really 16 of 18 after his freshman year from 40 to 49, and he was career 9 of 15 from 50 plus. 9 of 15 from 50 plus is
solid.
Very good for a college kicker.
It's solid.
That's very good.
Yeah, it just
I think it's between the ears.
he's a different guy.
Yeah,
He was a
it
much
happens.
better
It
college
sucks.
kicker.
It happens.
Yeah.
We were talking about with the quarterbacks. Like confidence doesn't matter how talented you are. If you lose your confidence, it can completely change the way you perform. I believe that about quarterbacks. I think a little more than you. It's true about kickers. It's true about everybody. It's not just a sports thing.
How much belief, if at all, do you have on Sly Guy right now? Like, do you think that Joey Sly could at least be like, not necessarily with the longevity that Nick Folk had here, but sort of that stabilizer?
I think he can be better than Ryland, but I think there are better options available, if that makes sense. Like, because I mean, he's been okay he was good at the start of his NFL career, and it's really the last couple years that he struggled.
Yeah.
So you're hoping he gets back to it, which was also Folk. Granted, Sly is much younger. I don't even think he's 30. He's 28. But I'd go get one of these guys from the UFL.
Yeah.
I mean, or the other option is you go in a camp, and this is there was a report the other day that they're not among the teams talking to the UFL kickers. Maybe they're waiting for Jake Bates solely, who's in the championship game. But the other option is you go through camp, you see what it looks like. And at the end of basically being on the other side of the Nick Folk thing.
Right.
You get to the end of camp and you see, all right, we don't have a kicker. There's going to be one or two teams that, they signed a UDFA kicker or whatever that end up with two good kickers, and you go get one of their guys for like a 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
You trade the pick you got for Nick Folk.
Right. It's a tough situation, and we've seen here on both sides of the coin, but we mostly have been lucky enough. The kicker run that the Patriots have had has been spectacular. And we've seen how much having that clutch kicker at the end of games can win you football games. Right now, the kicker might be the worst player on the roster that they currently have.
It's worst position group.
I guess worst player on the roster is not. You're probably more thinking of it the correct way. I'm just saying the lowest floor of any position on the team right now is probably kicker. I mean, the other positions don't necessarily have the studs, but I think they would be more or less competent in most of the other spots. There's a chance that they have a terrible year with the kicker again, like they had last
It's very
year.
possible.
Yeah. Jeff is in Maine. What's up, Jeff?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not
Hey.
much.
So I'm just joining. So if you've already covered these things, feel free to completely disregard them. I'm going to rewatch the rest of the pod later. One thing that I noticed from last night, and I am almost certainly reading too much into this, but when Bill was listing all the great players that he coached, a lot of the guys, including Dante Hightower, he never mentioned Gerard Mayo. I don't know if I'm reading too much into that or if he was as good as those players. I'm sure that's not something you want to discuss, but I was just kind of curious if you thought that he was of that caliber. And then, so I believe, and you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, that does the center call out the protections in this scheme?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what would David Andrews, I mean, he's been in the league a long time and had some great coaches and played with Tom Brady, obviously. what would his, preparation look like now, and what exactly are his responsibilities when it comes to, the change in scheme and what he has to handle on the field? And I'll take it off the air.
Yeah, thanks for the call,
Thanks,
Jeff. Those are two good questions. With the Gerard thing, my take on this, and I know people have mentioned this in numerous other places, that Bill Belichick did not mention Gerard Mayo. I have two quick thoughts on it. Number one, we all know that Bill has that spiteful gene in him, where he could do things like that. So I understand why people are taking it as a slight towards Gerard Mayo. And maybe this is me just being naive, but I would hope that last night wasn't the night for Bill Belichick to deeply care about leaving Gerard Mayo out of his speech.
Yeah.
It just seemed like the moment was bigger than that for all the petty nonsense.
I mean, there are people that's the narrative they enjoy. That's what they're keeping track of. So they want to have fun with it. The caller said, how much do you want to look into? How much do you look into it? How much do you want?
So
I'm with you. I think it was just,
there wasn't a moment that fit to talk about Gerard Mayo without it being performative and being in there just to be in there. Love Gerard Mayo as a player. He was not Willie McGinnis. He was not Dante Hightower. He was not the other guys he mentioned. I know Bill mentioned Aqib Talib, but I think that might have been the first time that he has seen Aqib Talib in years. So it might have just been like, hey, Aqib Talib's here. So that sort of thing. I can understand, like you said, that why it felt spiteful and why it could potentially be spiteful, and maybe it was. But I like to think that Bill was there for Tom, and it wasn't meant to be his time to air his grievances, even if it was in a sly way. The other thing I would say about it, though, that on a little bit of a different tone, it is a little bit disappointing / upsetting that as a first-year head coach, one of the youngest, if not the youngest, I always forget this. I think
No, he's the youngest.
what's his name in Seattle? Isn't he younger?
Oh, Mike McDonald, right?
Yeah. Regardless, one of the youngest head coaches in the league, first-year head coach. I do wish that it didn't end.
Yeah, he's second youngest. McDonald's younger.
Yeah, I do wish it didn't end as poorly with Bill as it did, so that he could be a sounding board for Gerard Mayo.
Yeah.
Especially this year, because he's not going to be in the league coaching. The fact that Gerard Mayo, if this is the case, maybe it's not. Maybe they're able to put it behind them and they're able to open the dialogue again. But if Gerard Mayo has lost Bill Belichick as a resource, just to shoot him a text every once in a while and say, hey, what do you think about this? I'm not saying that Bill's coaching the team. He's not coaching the team anymore. That I do think is going to be would obviously help Gerard Mayo, right? To have the greatest head coach of all time be there as a source of help. Similarly to how I'm sure Elliot Wolf calls his dad all the time, right? So it just, that piece of it I do find a little bit disappointing, that if all the politics and all the way that it ended, which was totally fair, but if all those things happened and now Gerard Mayo has had to sever ties with Bill Belichick, that does stink, because I'm sure Bill would be a great resource for him.
And hopefully, if that's the case, that time heals all wounds, right?
Yeah.
And especially something like that, you can tell the band's starting to get back together a little bit.
A little bit. I don't know about that band. Well, we'll see.
Not that, but I'm saying
Bill, Gerard, RKK. I don't know about that.
Did you see how happy Bill was to see Brady?
Oh, yeah.
And Nat? I'm saying, all right, so that's one we've got out of the way, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Quickly on the center thing, this is a much longer topic that we don't have time for right now. But short version, I don't think that it will change a whole lot about David Andrews' preparation, because as the center, even though he wasn't the final say at the line of scrimmage, he's always going to know the different fronts teams play, the different mic points, the different ways that they make adjustments and calls, because he is going to take that from the quarterback in the old system and then also help relay that message to the offensive line and to the tight ends and things like that.
Yeah.
So he's a part of that communication in any system. So I don't think that he was going into games before with not any clue of how they were going to pick things up and how they were going to block stuff. So I don't think it's going to change his preparation all that much. It does change the amount that he's going to talk, though. He's going to be much more involved in that. So we'll see how that goes on. But with his experience in the league and him being such a veteran guy and a captain and just David Andrews, I don't think that that's a major concern, but it is a change and something that isn't lost on me in terms of what it puts on a young quarterback too. To take that off of his plate is big. Now, that can get you into some trouble. It does get Brock Purdy into some trouble every once in a while because he doesn't get them out of plays that aren't going to work.
Drake May's better quarterback than Brock Purdy.
I didn't say that.
I said it.
But that does happen in San Francisco where all of their hots and all of their answers to different things are all programmed into the play. So Brock Purdy is not coming to the line of scrimmage like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and saying, kill, kill, kill. Let's get into this play. Let's run that play instead. Audibling at the line of scrimmage. They're running the play that Kyle Shanahan calls, and then there's answers within those plays. So those are some of the differences, but we can unpack that a little. We have plenty of off-season shows coming up here where there's not going to be as much to talk about. Today was a very heavy off-season show for all things considered.
This is it. This is now we're off into the off-season.
We're off to the off-season. Before we wrap this up, though, we have 4 or 5 minutes to talk a little bit of Celtics here, Alex. And I am at the point now at the Celtics where I am now in FU to all the people that told me Dallas was a legitimate threat in this finals. I don't necessarily care about all the Luka Doncic stuff like that. I'm not a Mavericks fan. I'm not a Luka Doncic supporter. Not that I hate him, but you know what I mean. But the biggest thing that I come back to, and we do this too, we have wrong predictions. We don't have crystal balls. We're not perfect. But the Celtics in this series, it did seem, even if it was to be a little hot takey, it got popular to pick Dallas in this series.
It's not just that people were picking the Mavericks, because that's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's that, I go back to that first take clip where Stephen A. and I forget who we had on, like they both picked the Mavericks, and then the host picks the Celtics, and they're like, whoa, oh my, you're picking the Celtics. Wow. It's like, it became this absurd thing to think the Celtics could even compete in this series.
Yeah.
Pick the Mavericks all you want, like whatever. But to act like it was unbalanced in the other direction is mind-blowing to me. The Mavericks have 2 players. That's it. Celtics have the most complete roster in the league.
Yeah. It's been awesome to... it's not over yet, right? It's over.
Better be over.
The fat lady's warming up, as they say, right? She's warming up the pipes, but it's not completely over. But as a diehard Celtics fan, I can tell you, this one is going to feel really sweet because we have watched the Jays grow up right before our eyes, right? Literally from drafted as Boston Celtics on draft night to this point. And to cut so close to the mountaintop as many times as they have, but not get all the way up there, and then to finally push the rock to the top of the mountain this year, hopefully. Those ones are always a little bit sweeter, I feel like, in like the mercenary championships where you're just buying
especially
players.
In the NBA where there's so much of that, and you don't see that. The Warriors were supposed to be that, and then they signed Durant, but like to see a homegrown championship in the NBA is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely very cool. I also feel like, going back to the point about the media, a lot of the people picking Dallas and that becoming a storyline. The other part of this, too, is just the disrespect that has been out there consistently for Jaylen Brown, who wasn't voted All-NBA, wasn't voted All-Defense, wasn't really considered one of those top guys this season or really in his career. If I'm giving an MVP of the series right now, it's Jaylen Brown. If Jayson Tatum scores 50 in Game 4, then
he's historically very, very, very good in closeout games.
Yes,
Tatum.
So it's possible that it could flip the other way, but his shooting percentages are not good. So that it's going to have to take one of those Game 7 50 pieces like he had against Philly last year. Yeah, but Jaylen Brown, regardless, he's a superstar. He's announced his presence as a superstar, and not voting him All-NBA so many of the NBA media picking the Mavericks in the series. There's just there was whether you want to say it, it doesn't matter or not, or tune out the noise or not. There was a lot of people that felt that the Celtics were an overrated team, that the Celtics were not as good as their record indicated, and they were soft, in terms of their mindset and things like that. They have been an absolute juggernaut the entire season, and they're going to have one of the all-time great postseason runs.
Yeah.
And they have really shown, and I think this is the most important thing to me, they play team basketball.
Yes.
They don't play my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, your turn, my turn, ISO ball like the Mavericks do with Luka and Kyrie. They play both ends of the floor at a high level. They move the basketball at a high level. This is what Red Auerbach would be proud of. This is basketball. This is, we're going to pass the rock. Everybody's going to touch it in a possession. It could be Drew Holiday. It could be Derek White. It could be Al Horford. It could be the Jays. Someone is going to hurt you at some point if we keep our ball movement up and all that kind of stuff. I feel like putting them in that category of they're just a three-pointing shooting team is also incorrect. Because I think they've played a much more complete basketball team than that. They are a fun team to watch. They are a great brand of basketball to watch, and it's cool that they're gonna do it against the ISO team in the NBA.
Right.
That just plays that style. And last but not least, I said I didn't care about Luka. The one thing I would say about Luka is that this is another thing that got force-fed to us. Best backcourt of all time. He's better than Larry Bird. He's a great offensive player.
I kind of feel bad for Luka because the hype was built up way too much.
It wasn't his fault.
And he's not going to live up to it. And we do this. I mean, we do this in basketball. We do it in football too. We're you get to these big games or big rounds, conference championship rounds, and the lead player of the team that loses, everybody always jumps and calls underrated or overrated. And I still think Luka's a top 15 player in the league.
He's top 5.
Yeah,
maybe.
This has not been a good series for him. There are clearly things he needs to improve on, communicating with the refs. But let's not kid ourselves and act like this is all. If anything, it's an indictment on Kyrie Irving. He waited until Game 3 to show up. Imagine if he gave him those kind of performances in Games 1 and 2.
Well, you know why he couldn't.
Right, because the fans. Good for them.
Yeah.
But let's. I don't know. We can enjoy the champ. I'm not going to sit here and be like, don't celebrate your championship. Feel bad for Luka. But I don't want to take away from Luka because it diminishes what the Celtics did.
No.
They beat one of the – it is – I mean, Luka and Kyrie is an excellent duo. It is. I don't know if it's the best backcourt of all time, but it's an excellent duo, and they beat them. Let's not start suddenly acting like they're not great. Oh, well, look at them. They look like they suck now. Maybe the Celtics are just great defensively.
Well, they
and that's why they look like they suck.
That was the other big thing too. People, you can only base your predictions and all this your commentary off of what you're watching, what you're seeing. But I always felt like the Celtics had another level defensively that they were sort of saving in the tank. If they had played a healthy Milwaukee team or a healthy Philly, maybe it would have come out earlier in the playoffs. But no offense to Indiana and Cleveland and Miami, but in order to get that out of a team, it had the adversary on the other. It has to be a worthy adversary on the other side. You're not going to be able to play at that type of intensity and that type of execution when you kind of know in the back of your head that you were going to win anyways, right? So that's always a little bit more difficult. So this team, this Mavericks team, in it being the stage of the NBA Finals is probably the bigger reason why. They've upped their defensive intensity and their effort on that side of the ball, and that's why they're going to win the series. They're not going to win the series because their offense has actually been a little bit worse this series. They're going to win the championship because of their defense. And they have shown everybody that you got to be it's a two-way game. Luka and Kyrie are awesome offensive talents, but if you don't play both sides, then you're not going to win a title. That's what they're showing, and it's been awesome to watch. And again, it's awesome to see the Jays finally get anointed. That's going to be a great feeling, hopefully on Friday night. But that does it for this episode of Patriots Catch-22. But before we sign off, Bridgestone, the official tire of the New England Patriots, is proud to partner with Sullivan Tire, New England's headquarters for quality Bridgestone tires. Visit sullivantire.com to find a location near you. And one last time, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the New England Patriots. I'll be having a Bud Light on Friday night when the Celtics complete the sweep, and we will see you guys next Thursday, and we'll have plenty to talk about still, so don't go anywhere.
Bye.
Thank you for downloading this podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Google Play, and everywhere else you listen. Like the show? Please rate and review us. Listener comments and ratings help keep us high in the podcast rankings so new listeners can find us. Be sure to check patriots.com for more news and more podcasts.